Oh.
Can you just say we're live?
We're live now. We're
live. We're live.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Yoga and Me, our monthly community dialogue with the Tree team, where we explore ways that we can apply yogic principles and philosophy for positive impact in our daily lives. So before we begin the conversation, we are going to have some collective breathing together. I'm gonna light my incense over here. So if you have some sage or incense over there or wanna just catch the vibe, then feel free to do that. And let's just find a comfortable seat, relax the shoulders back and down. See if you can feel some length in your spine. Take a deep breath in. Open the mouth and long exhale out. We'll take two more like that. Breathing in, feeling the belly, the lungs expand. And exhale out, nice and full. Maybe even noticing the belly button reach toward the spine. Emptying out. Last breath, inhale. Exhale. Jen?
Thank you. I always like how you guide our breathing. Well, to open up our conversation today, I wanted to share an excerpt from this book called How to Fight. I'm just kidding. But it's by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Zen and mindfulness teacher. So of course it isn't like physically fighting, but just like tools to use when we're wanting to fight, right? And so there's this excerpt that's called Use Your Community. Today our conversation is yoga and community. So I want to share this with all of you. Use your community. Part of acknowledging suffering is acknowledging we need help. It is much easier to practice compassion if you have the energy and support of a community. A community helps us not lose hope. It's not always easy to resolve our suffering alone. We're all unskillful at times. Even if we don't want to harm anyone or create suffering, we do it anyway. We can't be skillful all the time. Every one of us needs help. Find a way to be with others who know how to look and listen deeply, who can help us understand the situation more clearly. This will nourish your compassion. With compassion in our heart, we suffer less because compassion has the power to heal. Take refuge in community, and then you will be able to help others as you help yourself. So, how to fight. Just kidding, with our mindfulness skills. So before we continue on, please, we're live on Facebook and YouTube, and we're going to just have a conversation here, and feel free to drop comments, questions, give your own thoughts, opinions, feedback, whatever you have as we're going along with this conversation. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Rita to start us off.
All right. Well, we just in general, I know we talked a little bit about what community means in relationship to yoga. So one of the questions that popped up in our earlier conversation was, what are we grateful for in our community? And I think that's a good question in our community in reference to South LA, LA in general, because it's hard to come up with things that we're grateful for, depending on the situation that we're in. So for me, one of the things that I'm grateful in my community are my neighbors, especially right now, my neighbors. I have awesome neighbors to both sides of my house. They communicate really well. And that's not to say who I consider the community alone, but I think it starts there. You know, your community starts with your neighbors. Even neighbors that live 2 or 3 houses down, we talk to, or even on the other side of the block. I'm grateful for our neighbors. You know, there's some neighbors that are a little sketchy sometimes, but for the most part, during this COVID time where, you know, the S hit the fan, I'm grateful for them. So, yeah. What about you guys?
Go ahead. Jay, you're laughing over there.
I don't have community in that same way. In that one, I just moved from where I used to live, and so for me, you know, you guys are my community, right? My yoga friends and whatnot, and where we're mostly Zoom, that's my community. And so it's actually been the benefit of this community that I have work, business, friends, even family to have moved back closer to LA. And so, you know, it's having, I think, that base and those people to be able to rely on that makes life worth it. You know, it's, you know, so many times we've been referred to as this family with what we do as this cooperative. And so, you know, I am very thankful for you guys as my family and my community, and as well as my family who may be watching as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar about the 4 of us, and we've definitely become community over the more and more, just spending more time with one another. And I think the part in the quote about we're all unskilled at times rings true, and it helps me appreciate this community amongst us as well, because I can recognize things that I'm not great at or don't have an interest in. And also at the same time, like, I get excited that Rita gets excited about creating logos or creating art in that way. And so it's like acknowledging how valuable everyone is, and that value shows itself in different ways. And that's the beauty of community, in that it's diverse. And so everyone can offer and bring their gift to the community and for the benefit of all in the community.
Yeah. I feel like personally, like, I haven't lived that long in this apartment that I'm staying at, but in the beginning of the pandemic, like, one of the young men was like coming around door to door to each apartment, like offering produce. And I was just like, wait, what's going on? And then that just like tugged at me. I'm like, here's this like young man, and young man, I act like I'm old. He's probably like just a few years younger than me. And that was really sweet. And I think what I've seen in South LA is just beautiful collaborations among organizations, individuals, corporations, local government, coming together to do like these food banks. And for me, it's like, I'm struggling in my own way, and I know that my struggles are different than how other people have been impacted. And then so to see how people are pulling resources together, like, I have space. Well, I have a contact that can bring food. I have people that can volunteer, and coming together to just really address like a huge need. I'm grateful for those people, those individuals that are really coming together to show support and to show that there's people who care, because sometimes we feel isolated, we feel alone, like we're struggling on our own. And then you see people come out, and you're not the only one in need and in need of support. And so really looking at that unity in the community and trying to figure out, all right, like, let's push forward together. And so I'm grateful for that there's people who constantly and are asking for help, like, hey, like, we can't do this alone. So it's also not like we have an abundance of resources to do this. So it's also like that call to action that I'm grateful for too.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. We're kind of like just a mashup and patch up those little parts of the space that needs to be patched up and held and supported. Which is a great segue to the next question that we brought up. How do you view yourself as part of this community? Like, where do you see your place, your contributions in the community? I'm going to let Jay start because I want to hear how he feels being part of this virtual community. Because he is like, I feel like he's the virtual community because he's always doing all of our like web and tech stuff. You're the backbone of our virtual community.
Yeah, I guess I see myself in the way that I saw other gentlemen of my age in the community as that support. As I was a young man coming up, then there were these people within the community that you could rely on, right? They knew what they liked to do, who they were, and that was who you went to for whatever it is in the sense that they were about. And so that's what I see my role in, as to be that support, to know that it's more about community than it is about me. Like, the person I am today is built off of those gentlemen that I now can look back at and really have love for. And so now I aspire to be those gentlemen, to where, you have that impact of people and they can look back and say, you know what, he helped me. He was a positive part of my life. And for me, like that's what I'm now looking forward to, turning 50 years old, is just being there the way my grandmother and grandfathers and aunts and uncles were, just being the backbone of the community to let those who might not know that, even though you might be running around and feeling like it's all about you, truly, it's all about us.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of my husband's babysitter when he was a little kid. He talks about her. I think I might have met her once or twice. But I feel like she was the backbone of like his block, because she would babysit him. And how many kids did she have? I think she had like 5 kids, 5 or 6 kids, and everyone knew each other. And if something happened and Big Mama found out, or it was like, oh shit, like she was the backbone of that block. And in the sense, the community around there. So, yeah, don't mess with Big Mama, because
or her kids, because
my grandmother had 8 kids. She had 8 kids, and my mother had me when she was 15, and so we had this huge family, and she was the backbone of 42nd and Hoover and that community, and people would still show up to Christmases, like. She did Christmases there since 1970. And so people would still show up, in the 90s and 2000s, coming back and whatever. And just because it was just this tradition, people would come just to, have that good time, hang out on the porch, have a little drink, stand out on the sidewalk and stand in a circle, for those who might know what the circle is out on the sidewalk. Definitely. She was our big mama, and we miss her. That's why it's my turn.
Big Papa.
Oh my God.
Big J. Daddy J. Papa J. We got to find a nickname for you, Jay. It can't be Jay.
That's how it is in the training. I wind up having a lot of daughters and sons that come out of the training, and I feel like that, like being that elder, to be there and help them on the beginning of their journey. Like, shit, I wish there was somebody there to talk to me about yoga and mindfulness and finding peace in the chaos.
Yeah.
I think when we were physically on the corner of Western and 83rd, I think I was so deep into cultivating so much different programming and events that involved like outreach or just communicating with wellness practitioners and just like, okay, what type of classes? Oh, you know what, we need youth programming. Oh, I need to connect to the local schools. I need to go to these meetings. That it was just kind of very busy with a lot of intention. That sometimes I feel like I was doing so much, I would forget the connections I was making. And then I get like these follow-ups and calls and be like, oh, thanks for doing. And I'm just like, oh, like that reminder to slow down and just really take in each moment, because I was trying to meet with so many people in the community in so many different ways that I was forgetting how many people I was meeting. And then you get that call back, be like, hey, thanks for coming. Just like, I don't even know how many schools I did, how many libraries, how many free things I did. That to me, it's like being part of the community is, to me, it's always been just sharing what I've been fortunate to learn and to gain. And so that was but I think that reminder that being in community is also being present with everything I'm doing. And I would get that after the fact. And I think now being virtual, like people reaching out, be like, hey, what's going on? How are things going? Like, what's going on with the tree, this and that. It's been like, you know, that reminder of like what that feeling felt like when we were together. And now that we're virtual, it's like how to still have that sense of community and those connections and checking in with each other. Because there's so many people who have come together at the tree, you know, that have met and relationships that flourish, like meeting all of us met there, you know, and so, and now we're a cooperative together. And so, to me, like building community is also just like a lot of relationship building. It's like getting married.
Yep.
Yeah. I see that too with other local businesses and organizations around here. They have a Meatless Mondays that goes on now by Earl's on Crenshaw. And I've been going the last few weeks, and just being present is part of community, right? You see business owners, you see what they're doing, you get to have that exchange with them. And a lot of these people, you know, are familiar with the tree and familiar with us too in that way. So it's like being present and supporting organizations and people that we believe in is very much part of my community building that I want to be part of here. And with that, like you said, comes relationships. And comes that richer and deeper, you know, community building. So yeah, and I just appreciate too that same feel. I think of South LA Cafe as another example of a local business that is huge on community. And you see it both in the digital world, like through their social media, as well as in their actual space when it was open. And even since they've been closed, it's like they've been giving food away and doing all of these other things, still connecting. And that's been a really great example, I think, too, of another organization where it's like that presence and that support going both ways. And so. Yeah.
Shout out to South LA Cafe.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I see myself as part of a growing Spanish-speaking yogi community, because I feel like I've been getting a lot of questions and inquiries about, in general, yoga, and then a little bit deeper into like, oh, so if I do yoga, will it help me with this or with that? And in that sense, currently, I feel like I'm connected to the virtual Spanish-speaking community right now. You know, because when we were in our physical space, it was easier to talk to Spanish speakers, even though they weren't coming in as much as I would have liked them to. So, gente, por favor. Métanse. No hay muchas excusas. Métanse en el Face, en el YouTube, en el Zoom. But yeah, so I feel connected to that, and I feel like that's where I view myself as part of this yogic community, is like, you know, suturing the Spanish speakers into our practice. So,
and I think with that, like, this is, I mean, we were kind of like thrown into becoming virtual, but virtual and on demand and all these things have been happening before the pandemic, but it wasn't our game. It wasn't what we were offering in the community. And when we had to learn all this stuff, and Jay being full-time producer, director, and of everything that we do. And shout out to Jana, who coordinated a lot of like, hey, you got to come in and record on this time and this time.
Yes.
Together. That we started expanding who our community is too. Like people all over the US and not even just California that are looking for spaces that are really elevating Black, Indigenous, people of color to be practicing yoga, because they've been practicing but maybe haven't found spaces where they're welcomed and celebrated, and really intentional healing for our lived experiences. And to see that more people finding out that we exist has really been like this different sense of community, of connecting to folks. And I think there's also this cooperative community that we're now becoming a part of, and seeing how the way that we support and work together has been brand new to me, to see that people are like, no, we're all about sharing education and information and resources and follow up if you have more questions. And so really seeing that in this capitalistic society where it's like competition, there's not enough, or we dim each other's lights, like, because for whatever reason, it's like, that's not yoga. And here it's like everyone can support each other and we can thrive because we each bring something unique.
Yeah.
And so that's been really beautiful, and how we've expanded in connecting to communities that we weren't connected to before.
Well, wow, Jen, that was the next question. How does yoga connect our community? That was pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Segue right into it before I even asked the question. But yeah, I feel the same way too. It's like there's this whole connection going on in this yoga community, even virtually, with with your students that are in teacher training that are from other places outside of Los Angeles. I think that's pretty cool. And just getting inquiries from Spanish speakers too, like, are you going to do something in Spanish, or when are you going to have this in Spanish? I think that the way yoga connects people starts from a space of wanting to maybe not just be something better, but be connected to something that's good. I feel like people are like, oh, yoga's like this awesome thing to do, and it's so zen, and it's like maybe that's what ticks, like sparks a little like let me go check it out, because then maybe I can be a better person or whatever. So I love the way yoga connects the community that way.
Yeah, and I teach yoga virtually with a continuation school, and so these are kids that are trying to get their like high school diploma, but they're not like kids, they're young adults, right? Yeah. They're working and they're going to school. And so looking at how to be community centered in what we're doing, that it's like, not just be like, hey kids, so it's like, hey, I know you probably like worked a late shift last night, or after this yoga class that you're required to do, you gotta go to work. So it's like being connected to like what's going on, and also the fact that they're at a continuation school, not to like treat those students as like, oh, what does that mean, or what did you do to be here, but like have some like understanding of like, damn, like there's so much that like that has happened in our schools that, you know, unfortunately they're underfunded, or it's the way that kids are funneled into continuation schools or worse places. And so looking at how this, I'm so grateful for this 1 hour that I get to sit with these youth and really share this practice where they're just like, that was great. Like, I needed that. Like, you know, I'm doing heavy lifting at work, or like, I'm so stressed out at home because of everything that's going on. And it's like they're seeing me makeshift around my little 1-bedroom apartment trying to teach a class. And I'm like, don't feel any kind of way about what your space looks like because you can clearly see how I'm moving around my own apartment. And just being like in tune to what does it mean to be like a community-centered practitioner, you know, and not just be like, get your yoga blocks, get this and that, because it's like half the time I'm borrowing props myself. So
yeah, I appreciate that about classes where you're gonna have the same group of people multiple times too, because that definitely helps to foster community when people see each other. Obviously in person that was more accessible for people to actually talk to one another outside of the formal class. But that is definitely something that I look forward to again in, you know, our new space, and just continuing to because I just remember even going into the Tree my first time, and, you know, at the beginning, it's like, it's a communal space in and of itself. A yoga studio can be really much. And so I think that being in the space together, you acknowledge that we're here for, you know, on some wavelength we connect because we both wound up here. And so that alone, finding common interests, you know, allows for that cultivation of community. I know right now I'm in a 300-hour training. This is our last weekend. And and that has truly been a space of cultivating community that I'm very grateful for. And again, it's like you acknowledge we're going through this journey together, number one. So there's this common experience that we get to share. And there's so much space in the training for us in breakout groups and to partner up with people that we do get the time to really meet each other and vibe. And so spaces like that where it really allows for people of shared interests or common interests to communicate with one another can contribute greatly to community building.
Yeah.
I think sitting in the circle is just a powerful thing to do. And that's having that space to really, in the sense of what Jen was saying, like what being virtual now allows us for our true selves to be revealed, right?
Like my tiny apartment.
You know, at work, you know, you all dressed up, you got your clothes on, you in your car, or whatever. Don't nobody know that the house is a mess. You know what I'm saying?
I'm like, disclaimer, this is not what
I was like, Jen,
my place looks like.
Jen's house is pretty clean right now. It looks amazing. What time zone are you in there, Jen?
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
It's like,
anyway, stay focused.
They have to be themselves when they're on the mat, when they're in the practice. But we don't really, there's no necessarily hiding. If I'm trying to stand on one leg, you know, that makeup ain't gonna stay on. My hairstyle ain't gonna stay the same. My clothes ain't gonna be all cool like when I walked in. And so you really get an opportunity to really be with people in yoga. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we are our avatars in the world. And in the practice, that's them. You know what I'm saying? Tired and done and all of that. You know, and when you have an opportunity to sit in workshops where you sit in the circles, especially doing trainings. You know, like I have friends to this day that are like family that were from my teacher training 12 years ago, right? And today we're still in contact. And so I think yoga is really community. It's in a sense of finding that balance of self and others. We're looking to find that yoke of where I want to be cool as me, but yet I also want to be cool as a part of a group. I don't want to be, unbalanced to where I'm giving myself too much here or giving myself too much there, to find that equality, if you will, within being. That's what yoga does, and it tells you, don't just go and try and hide in your asanas. Go back out and share and be with your family and friends. Be in the moment and not in the assumption. That's, I think, the community aspect of yoga, why what I learned when I first started at the yoga den in Corona, and just yoga in Corona, right? That was my community. That was my family. And so I was like, I want to do that same thing. And now here we are with the tree and building and cultivating that. That's why I'll fight to protect that. It's always that ability for us to just sit down and be, right? Not be in assumptions, but just be present.
Wow, Jay, that kind of segues into my other question. You guys are just like kind of mind reading the questions today. How has serving in a nonprofit, or the Tree South LA is a nonprofit that has been serving the community for the past 8 years, and I know Jay has been there since the beginning. How has serving in that nonprofit taught you, or at least guided you, in how to engage as a cooperative worker-owned cooperative business model in the community? That's a long ass question, huh?
You don't want me answering that one first.
Well, I will say that because oh my gosh, let's see, 2016, it's 2020, 4 years, 4 years of being connected to the tree and working for the tree in different ways, as a teacher, then as like staff, and then like independent contractor, and now like supporting this transition into the cooperative. I've learned a lot about what, just generally speaking, how nonprofits are meeting like the gaps of what public service isn't providing. Like nonprofits are usually providing services that people need that aren't available. And so knowing like that service space and like that giving, like people who are who work in nonprofits, really understanding how to assess a need and like how to what we offered, right? We saw that like one, there's yoga that's not accessible physically, then it wasn't, and then it's not accessible money wise, or like the way that people teach it, it keeps it inaccessible. And so having learned that, but then even it's not just offering yoga classes, but training people to have employment opportunities. And so that working in that framework of having run a nonprofit for 8 years, we learned how to like fine tune that. But it's also like, well, how do we actually like build on this business model of supporting practitioners of color to have businesses, and seeing like that a business model that is very rooted in community, and seeing like we're gonna see what is still the need that the community wants, what's the service we can provide, but also like that it's reciprocated in people having employment, and it's not making money off the community, it's feeding it back into the community. And so having learned in the nonprofit structure to now being a cooperative business, it's like everyone who's part of it has a say in how it's run. And so that's really taught me a lot about what I still need to learn about running a business, but also how does our relationship change in the community, or maybe it doesn't. It's just a different type of relationship building that happens. But I think South LA has always been known for supporting Black-owned businesses and like minority-owned, I hate that word, but like just, small businesses. And right now they're being hit super hard. And so really seeing like, how does a business function in this pandemic, and what resources are needed to really support and sustain them.
Yeah. I'm learning too in this is we need the community needs us. Like you're saying, it's a reciprocal relationship. And I think what I'm definitely stepping into, especially as we are developing this as a, for-profit cooperative structure, is acknowledging the value that that we are as a community. And this, a lot of this is a value exchange. And I think also with us as leaders in this endeavor is acknowledging our community as valuable and also caring about their continued well-being. And so that looks like investing in them with our, being mindful of what needs we want to meet as a business, being mindful of who this is for and who we specifically would like to see continue to grow and to shine, you know what I mean? And so, and in that same regard, the idea and hope is that our community also values what we're offering and sees them, so there's this mutual beneficial situation between co-op and community, because we all need each other. And like you said, because we are all in this same community, it's like that, it's a cyclical thing. And so we can't be separate from the community, just like the community can't be separate from the service providers in their community, you know what I mean? So, and I think that there's real value and joy in giving space for people to be that, to explore that, to share that, to commune in that with one another. And that's definitely one thing that excites me about continuing to cultivate community, and especially, again, being back one day in person with each other and being able to vibe with each other for real. And because that too is part of communal healing. We literally, need touch and energy exchange in that real way. And so I appreciate it and look forward to more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, my service in the nonprofit, I was part of the first cohort of teachers that got certified there, has been that there's so many different people that want to be part of not just the nonprofit, but of that yoga collective, that wellness center, that holistic space, that alternative socializing group, if that makes sense, because it's not like you just go out to the club or anything. You go hang out with the yogis at the studio.
Go to more yoga events.
Yeah, it's like, you want to go to a sound bath? Oh my God. It's like you get excited over different stuff. That's kind of,
you want to go to the wholesale thing.
Yes. It's like all these events.
Real conversations.
Yeah, like all these events that I didn't even imagine myself talking about, 10 years ago. It's like, oh my God, yeah, let's go to the cacao ceremony, or, it just that, that's what that working at the nonprofit has taught me, and seeing all the different kinds of people that walked in the doors, from all parts of LA, from different economic levels, and all kinds of genders, all kinds of, people that I don't think I would have been able to meet anywhere else except in that space. And that has taught me, and I think not just taught me, but I think all of us have that little thing when we meet for our co-op meetings, that we just keep bringing in those mindsets of nonprofits, like, oh, but what about if da-da-da, and this is how we stood at the nonprofit. And it's like, we have to like switch our minds to that for-profit business module, but still keeping that integrity that we know who our community is, and we know the services that we have to offer. So I don't know, I feel like coming into this business co-op with just the lived experience of the nonprofit, there's so many things that I've learned. A lot, compassion, especially one of those.
We learned plumbing. We learned. We became plumbers too.
Plumbing.
Oh my God! Damn sure plumbing. Damn sure plumbing. I think ultimately, for me, I learned the difference in volunteering and actually working. There was a difference in my approach, in the sense of when I just first started and would drive an hour just to teach a class and then be done. It in a sense of where we did not necessarily have a lot of the organization and whatever, and a lot of things depended on the founder to get things done in that way. And so there was not that a team effort, I'd say, right? It was, let me volunteer and then kind of throw my little bit of help into the founder. And it allowed, I think, the tree to sustain as what it was. But in a sense, as we found that now we actually needed to grow, we needed to do more, as the community now have begun to recognize us and want to do more things with us. Now, with that lesson at the nonprofit is that we still want it to be aware it's a community thing where it's still feeding into the community, but yet still have structure, still have organization, and then empower the team in ways that where now people want to stay, want to actually put in good work, not just what we could do here or there and whatever, but this is what I love to do in life, and let me now pour that love into the tree and be compensated for it.
Yeah.
I think, being able to do that and also be an example to the community of how cooperatives and working in a team environment in that way could help other people, in the sense, come together and have businesses, as opposed to just trying to strike out and doing it on their own. There's now that building of that community of what can you do and what can you do and what can you do. That's the community I was born into in the 70s of, South Central, of where everyone knew each other. And so if you needed to get your car fixed, the guy down the street was going to do it, right? You know what I'm saying? If you was going to get some food, the people bringing the cart up the street, that's where you was going to get it. And I'm talking produce and whatnot, you couldn't just go to the grocery store. We didn't have that kind of money and so on and so forth. We would go hunting, go fishing to eat, and we would all pile up in the cars and caravan out, go get food, and then line up at my grandma's house and like chop up fish and do all kind of stuff, It's just, knowing that in community there's empowerment, and now in this business, us coming together and bringing our talents together, that empowers us, and now have us, have a better tree with stronger roots and more leaves, if you will.
Yeah, just like we were talking today, we got to get repotted into a bigger pot. Maybe not even a pot, maybe like a place in the backyard.
Oh.
Damn sure a bigger pot. And this is what we talking about for those people who are watching live and recorded. Our next move is to get a bigger spot so that we could have the community come in more and learn that, yoga is not some religion, right? There's a difference between philosophy and a religion, right? A philosophy are just principles, where a religion, that's someone's cultural understanding, right? This is, again, where you can point out and I think make people stronger within their spiritual or religious beliefs, right? A Christian teaching of moderation is yoga. And so, what we're trying to do in the sense of bringing together this community center is something of where we could bring people from all walks of life together, right? But we can now get rid of this thought of division of different people and come into understanding that we're all the same spirit, all that same love. We need a bigger space to do that.
Jay's dropping big news that I don't know if we were going to announce any of that tonight. Okay. Just kidding.
I said that it's just a plug.
Stay tuned.
It's just a plug for a big pot. Well, guys, with that being said, for those of us that are already familiar with the co-op, and for those that are watching that maybe don't know what a cooperative is and the way that we are transitioning into a worker co-op cooperative, what information can we give our listeners of how this worker co-op is going to be repotted?
Well, I'm going to give a textbook definition and then kind of elaborate on it. So we will be explaining a little bit more in depth as far as what this transition looks like and what a worker-owned cooperative looks like as it pertains to who we are as a cooperative and what our goals are. But a worker-owned cooperative, it's a business that is owned and managed by the people who work in it. So the four of us, we're working in this cooperative. We're also the owners, we're the founders, where not only are each of us yoga teachers, but two of the four are running trainings. And in this upcoming year, who knows, maybe all four of us will be running more continuing education trainings. We're continuing to train ourselves. And so that not only just gives us the skills to continue expanding in the services and trainings that we offer as how we've been known as a yoga studio, but as a wellness space. Each of us bring different skill sets from our years of work experience that allow us to operate in a business to work with other wellness practitioners. Me with my flyers that I make, but along with all this other administrative and detailed work that I have research experience, I can use that for other ways that the business needs it. And same way that Jay, Jana, and Rita have other skill sets. So each of us are running the business together. And so when we bring on teachers and other practitioners, they're also part of this cooperative. And just the way that the cooperative works, it's a different structure. And also students are part of our cooperative through services that they use. And so, but all of this, we will talk more at a later time. But please, fam, this is my new marriage here. Please add anything that you feel would be good to further explain here.
One thing that is unique about a cooperative, in addition to what Jen was saying, is that it's run democratically as a business. And so we are the people who work for the business and we are managing the business. And so we get equal vote in changes that, might need to take place with the business. And so in forming it, we agree upon how we want to operate. And should we want to make any changes or things of that nature, then we do it democratically. It's as opposed to in most common businesses, there's a boss who makes the decisions that affect everyone else. And the other way that we are incorporating, so we will have other teachers on our team who may not be worker owners initially, but there's a pathway to becoming worker owners as well. And also the people in our cooperative, teachers and students, have voting say and voting power, should they choose to exercise it, regarding things that relate to them. So if we're talking about teacher pay or schedule, then those are things that the teachers would have a say in. If we're talking about the schedule and maybe, I don't know, the price changing of something, then maybe the students have some type of say in that. So those are things that we're still figuring out. But the ideology around the cooperative is that it's not one person making decisions for everyone. It's a community feel in that as well, and that we all have some say in how the business evolves, progresses, changes.
Yeah, and with that being said, I think this cooperative model that we're doing is pretty well. I think we've made a great choice in making it a worker-owned co-op. There's other types of cooperatives. For our listeners, if you look up cooperatives, you could probably find some where there's different kinds of ownership levels and memberships and all this stuff. But what makes a cooperative different than a regular business model, like Jana said, is that when decisions are being made, it's a collective decision where you have inputs from everyone and not just the CEO saying, oh, you know what, I need a bigger raise and all those people making minimum wage got to go. So it's not like that at all. And what makes our co-op even more special, in my mind, is that its founders are all people of color, and they are all from the community. And we are going to be opening our business in South LA. So I think that makes this co-op like a triple threat. Bam, triple threat yoga. I don't know, is that going to be my next yoga class? Triple threat. But yeah, I think this cooperative module hopefully will pick up and we'll be able to see a little bit more in South LA after we take the lead.
And you saying that's kind of like we're diverse in when you're starting up a business, that's like 50% of our business is veteran owned, 75% is women owned, and then it's
Yes.
like, so it's like really, and then 50% is like raised, born and raised in South LA. And so it's like just really seeing that what it means to be community centered and really understand these diverse experiences that we each bring to the table.
Oh yeah, baby. Damn, we're pretty badass. Top five.
So I just want to really emphasize.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
No, it's just like, hey, Facebook folks, drop some.
Oh yeah, if you guys have questions.
Your phone don't show with your background, just so you know.
Sorry, but go ahead, Jana.
I really appreciate this little experiment we got going on. And I say that I had a moment, and I've thought this several times, but I really appreciate the people that I work with, right? And that how your workspace is a community. And a lot of times it's like you go to work, you spend all the time there, and you come home, and it's how much time are we spending with our workspace and our work community? And how do we feel about, do we even consider it a community? Clearly we do here, but I'm just saying something for people to think about is like, you're part of community, even the ones that if you're present there, you're part of the community, right? And so it's, and so I just appreciate this work community that we are building and valuing again, that it's light, it's laughter, and it's honest, and we, it's like the iron sharpen iron, where we all learn and grow from each other and have that honesty and transparency and not have to feel like we can't say what we really feel and feelings are going to be hurt. It's like, it's family in that real way where we can be honest because we know it's coming from love and that we're in this together.
Yeah.
And So that's another piece of community where you've got to be able to be yourself to really
Yes.
enjoy it and be a part of it and contribute it in a way that's authentic for you.
Yeah.
I say that's definitely the benefit of yoga and community, right? Is that it's if you're in the practice and you're actually practicing, then it's a constant pointing back, and that you having to be you. If not, you get exposed real quick. And I think having yoga as our foundation, it really gives us this great cooperative, right? It's in the sense of there's cooperative principles that we have, and then there's the yogic principles that we have, and they kind of go hand in hand to have a great business, a great friendship, a great family, if you will. And that takes that humility, right? That actual coming down and having to say, I might be messed up in some things.
Yeah. I think it definitely says something when it's like work is like that task list is going to always be there. It's never ending. But if you have a team of people that you work with that like the relationships are nourishing and getting through that task list and very humanizing and understanding like, hey, I checked out at 4:00. It's like I'm done today. And it's just like understanding. It's like there's also accountability. It's like if I'm going to take the rest of the day off, it's because I need to take care of myself. Next day, come fully energized or whatever. But it's looking forward to having this community and work, but also like these yogic principles that allow us to check ourselves or someone check you and you not be reactive towards it. It's like, what? Yeah, you're right. Let me take a breath. But it's like all of those are tools that we hold ourselves accountable to practicing, but also to be that reminder to each other. And do it like, hey, not like, let me mute you right now.
That's it right there. Something you hear a lot is that when you get into yoga, one, you're like an alien to everyone else in your world. And so now you want to be around more people who are into the practice, are kind of into this kind of inward looking. And so that's damn sure for me a very big benefit to having my work and my friends all be in that same community of where now there's that respect and that love of where it's different when you're working for a boss or you're working for some people, you're like, to where now you're like, that respect that you have for those other people you want to work for, right? Even if I do go take a nap or whatever, then there is that accountability, that disappointment, that wanting to show up for your partners, as opposed to when it's just, a boss that you can't stand, but you got to pay your rent, or your mortgage or your, car note. That's a big difference for me.
Yeah. And there's also that, like, when you also kind of are your own boss, that part.
That's true.
Yeah.
Real quick, guys. I have two comments on YouTube. One is from Camellia. She says, yeah. Yoga as connection and community and communication, so powerful. Yes, thank you for joining us, Camila. And then Mavis said, I love the new model. Y'all distributing power is where it's at. Yes, Mavis. Thanks for joining us. True that.
Mwah, Mavis.
For y'all who don't know, Mavis has a really beautiful singing voice.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Mavis.
She was a star at a fundraiser event, I think a year or two ago.
That was 2 years ago. Oh, my God. No, 3 years ago. No? 2.5.
You know what's funny? If this is Camila Lax, she also is a great singer. She's also a great guitar.
Oh, wow.
That's funny. Look at us knowing the community.
It's a community.
Right.
And then Rose put a little pumpkin happy face or something.
I love it.
We have a Facebook comment. It's from Grace LaQuest. It just says priorities with a heart. I know I'm horrible.
It's
Jenni, you're supposed to be reading Facebook.
She said priorities. And I think that was earlier on when we were talking about our cooperative model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could just be talking about love. Priorities.
Oh yeah.
So that we were out of questions. That was
it, guys. Those were all our questions that we had.
I love it.
I do want to just randomly make some comments about some things I think we had mentioned, but if there's anything else. I wanted to give shout out to people who are doing these community fridges. I know there's one in Hawthorne, there's one at Hot Cafe, and just people, like we went the other day and there's like fresh produce that people can come take. Then there's like packaged foods that I know Amisha, I see her always like, hey, dropping off all these like packaged foods for people to come pick up. And really, I mean, our yogi, of course, Amisha, just really like pulling in resources and sharing the resources and like, you know, these businesses that are giving their power to like run a community fridge, and that's super dope. I think they have an Instagram just called Community Fridges. I could be wrong, I'll double check. But just giving love to these businesses that are really helping us pull through. And that was just my comment.
Yeah, true that.
And Yogi's like Amisha, that like, I don't know where that girl's like a come up queen. She just randomly like has like food to come and refill it like week after week. I'm like, girl, I need to figure out where I can get some stuff too.
That's that hustling spirit. You said getting out there, getting it done, not, you know, being focused on what you want, having that dristy. You'll get what you put your mind on.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think about the hustle being the drifting. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know, in the sense of being your own boss. When I've almost, you know, for the most part, a lot of my life, I've been my own boss. I've lucked up and got into doing what I've loved to do and being a computer geek, and that's allowed me some great autonomy and then an ability to do things for myself. But that came from that hustling mentality of, again, what the community had showed me. You know, it was in my grandmother's house. It's a house of, you know, just a ton of people. And so it's not like you was just going to get, you know, breakfast and lunch and whatnot. You know, you kind of had to go scrounge for everything as far as breakfast and lunch, and you got dinner. And so that meant, you know, having to go out and work at like 7 and 8 years old. You know, we would go down to Ralph's on, Figueroa and Vernon, and carry old ladies' bags to the cars and whatnot. You know, and then they'd give us money. And, you know, at 7, 8 years old, I'd go over to Thrifty's. I'd buy me a toy. We'd walk across the street, Jack in the Box. I'd get me a little lunch, you know. I learned early, you know, that was, again, everyone hustled from landscaping. You know, my grandmother had a landscaping business. You know, my uncle to this day, my Uncle Robbie, he has a landscaping business. And he's his own individual. You know, he did some things back from the 80s that a lot of people got mixed up in and went away for a bit and came back and is his own man, right? In the community, having his own business, being hired by the community. You know, my family has... who still lives all throughout South LA, has had that hustle mentality. And again, I think that's just the spirit of who we are as Black and brown individuals, you know, where you're locked out of the society in a way to where you have to rely on each other, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the benefit, I'll say, of the white supremacy that we've faced, is that it's made us have to turn back and rely on each other for so much. And as things, I think, kind of begin to change and shift and we begin to move, I think that's something I'm beginning to know, or damn sure I noticed, right? As I lived out in the suburbs, not having that community, not having those neighbors who you've known for years and you can just go leave your kids at, or who would tell you what your kids had done. You know, like there's that loss of that community. And so it's, you know, I think it's, for me, why the tree is so important is to try and bring that back, or definitely use these principles to teach how important it is. Because after each teacher training, each one of those students now feel like they're a part of the tree community, and they wind up sticking around with each other and becoming friends and bonding, whatever the hell it is I'm trying to say.
Bonding.
Right. Just coming together and being that family, even in the sense of, as we lost our friend to cancer, of how beautiful it was for us to come together and stand and support her in her final week. You know, that's to me is what community is about. And that, again, is how it used to be, of where when something happened, you couldn't just call the morgue or whatever. You know, somebody would pass, they would have funerals in homes. You know, the community was everything, right? It wasn't just a catchword. It was family, friends, work, the whole enchilada, if you will.
Yeah, that's why this practice and this space is so important in South LA, I think, because everybody's so and you know, on their hustle, tired, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. You know, this space is I think going to reach out to a lot of people and you know, change their perspective, give them a little time to rest, bring a little peace.
And, you know, I think because there's so many training, like teachers that go through our training, and all like the 150 plus that have gone through our training, they're all like hustlers in their own way. And I think we've spent 8 years learning all the difficulties, all the trial and error, that we also try to share that learned experience so that they don't have to hustle and struggle as much as like we did, right? And it's like knowing that why not share best practices or things that have been learned so that people don't have to struggle like that. You know, like, they don't, like, starting up a business isn't, and even just being a yoga teacher itself, you work for all these other folks and then getting paid at different rates and then not having health insurance and being in the, you know, it's like, it's so many things that we learn. And just to know that, especially our teachers from the community, like knowing that as we fine tune our business model, like we're here to also support them in their business endeavors and seeing how to work together, because there's so much that everyone can offer and there's room for everyone to provide their services. And so why not help each other be able to do that successfully, or at least not as like much of a bumpy road as some of us have had to go through.
That reminds me of a saying I heard my my cousin in Mexico say. He's like he hangs out with a bunch of really spiritual people, and he was going to he was having some kind of, I forgot where he was going, and I was like, hey, can I tag along? And he said, sure, if there's space in heaven for everyone, like there's space for you in the truck or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's always space. There's always space. So we'll hold it. We'll hold this fort down for her.
I like that me and Rita are always trying to say like these Mexican sayings that we know. We're like, I've never heard that one. I've never heard that one.
Yeah, they don't necessarily translate right, but you know what I'm talking about. There's space in heaven for everyone. There's space for you in the truck.
Oh, that one's cute.
Yeah. I love it.
Well, we're getting close to the end, but go ahead, Jay.
That's definitely what the tree is about, is having that space for everyone, having that space for anyone to come rest. I think we're so used to, again, because of that hustle mentality of having to, in a sense, run that rat race that's been put out there for us, that we have lost the knowing of the importance of rest, of taking that time out to just go and close your eyes and let go of your worries, if you will, right? That story that tomorrow is going to be something that you actually don't know. That's the benefit. Again, you know, my grandmother is, again, this is what inspires me to do this work, to really push to have the tree, is to do what she did on 42nd and Figueroa, which was have a place where, if, you know, people just needed a place to come and chill and be and get away from how things were on the street, you could come and chill. If that was in the yard, if you was cool enough, maybe you could make it on the porch. And if he was even cooler than that, maybe you could make it in the house. But right, there's different aspects to my grandma's house, right? There's so many people. Everybody couldn't come in the house. But you might be able to come on the porch, where she had it completely set up, chairs, and it was, you know, a place of where everybody would come and hang out. And literally at a time, as I was younger, almost every day, every night, everybody came and congregated on my grandmother's porch. You know, after they got off work, that's where they come and they hung out, and it was a good time. Dice and dominoes, and, you know, just hanging out. You know, and as we got older, then it got to be the weekends. You know, it's just as time went on, everybody couldn't hang out in that way, but it was just always nice to be able to go someplace of where she'd feed you. You know, it'd always be some food. You know, it just was that place of where you could go and just get away from the craziness of, again, I'll say it, the white supremacy in the world. You know, just a place to get some rest and some shade.
I mean, I remember, like, when we were at our old spot, how people just didn't want to leave sometimes. And I'm like, you know, I got to clean the floors. So
Yes.
can you all just move to the side really quick?
Right.
I'm not rushing you out. I'm just saying I want to go home.
Yeah.
So let me clean up. But it was that, because it's like, you know, you're connecting with people, you're there. It was too hot outside. It was whatever. You want to take pictures. You want to keep practicing. You just want to sit, do nothing. And it was just such a, what is it when we were like, what do we smell like? And I was like, we smell like sweat and sage. That's what I just think about, like, how the studio, like, we smell like sweat and sage in there. And for some reason, it's just like, yes, I'm home. I'm here to rest. And
you know, it's some yogis going, yeah.
Yeah.
Sweat.
What else would it have smelled like? Essential oils?
Well, you know, it can get hot in the studio.
Oh.
Get hot in the studio.
It was still sweat. Just because it was funky doesn't mean it wasn't sweat.
Different kinds of sweat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna back up from that.
Jay. Oh my God.
Yoga
All
and
right, y'all.
community people.
Yeah. I love
Jana.
it. This was
See, I know Jana now, to when Jana goes, yeah, it's done.
Done.
It's done.
It's nap time. It's nap time.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like that was a full conversation. Like, I feel satisfied.
Anna just pulled at me, like, hey, I know you're all having a great conversation, but, like, we gotta go. Like, so bye. All right. Well,
All right.
The floors.
Jay, are you gonna lead us out with our 3 breaths?
Me? You want me to do it? All right. So happy we had this time together. For those old enough to know the Carol Burnett, that's why Rita laughed and you two were like.
Wow.
So old.
All right.
I just feel like the Brady Bunch here, like are like we're on these boxes right now. And I mean that's my reference. That's how young or old I am.
You said the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, like you know how there are little boxes that how the start. Yeah, no.
I did know. You know, I just didn't like the Brady Bunch because I couldn't relate. It's like with all these white kids in here, this fool, what do these fools want to run away from home? You got a maid, you got all this money. Like, seriously? I couldn't relate. Anyway.
Oh.
Okay.
Let's relax those shoulders.
Lead us out. Lead us out.
Let's take that deep breath through the nose. Just release it through the mouth. Again, inhale through the nose. Exhale, release it through the mouth. One more, inhale through the nose. Exhale, release it through the mouth. The benefit of our practice is to be reminded that we're not yesterday, we're not tomorrow, we're the love that is right now. Namaste.
Namaste.
Ashe.
Namaste. Ashe.
Bye.
Bye.